California is one step closer to legalizing recreational marijuana. The issue will be on the state's November ballot, allowing residents to decide. 7 other states will also vote on the legalization of weed, including Nevada, Arizona, and Maine. If voters in California approve the initiative, it would impose a 15% sales tax on retail sales of pot.
And within the next 30 days, the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration could consider whether or not to reclassify marijuana as a Schedule II drug. That would essentially make THC products, the active ingredient in marijuana, legal in all 50 states. Now, this consideration is in response to a 2015 letter from 8 Democratic senators urging the federal government to research marijuana's medical benefits. There are 5 schedules of classifications the DEA gives drugs. Currently, pot is a Schedule I drug, which means the DEA federally does not allow it for medical use. If they move it to a Schedule II, it could open up its medical use with restrictions. Already 25 states and the District of Columbia have legalized medical marijuana, and 4 other states have legalized recreational pot. Well, this morning we're joined by Kevin Sabet, who is with us live this morning from New York City. He is a former White House senior advisor in the Office of National Drug Control Policy. Kevin, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Layla. Thanks for having me.
Now, you've been called the quarterback of the new anti-drug movement, the #1 enemy of medical marijuana or marijuana legalization. Some folks have some not so nice things to say about you when it comes to legalizing marijuana. First of all, do you think the DEA will reclassify this drug?
I don't think so at all. I mean, the issue is they are asked to do so every couple of years by activists and others. And so they have to look at the research. And so there hasn't really been any new research saying that something like raw smoked marijuana can pass the standard that pharmacists and the scientific community have for dispensing an actual medicine. But I want to make a separate point. You know, that's one issue. The other issue is just, does it have medical value at all? And I'm not saying that it doesn't have any medical value. There are likely components within the plant that can be used for medicines in the future, and they should be researched. A few hundred people in this country are legally allowed to research them. The research is actually going on, and I think that's good. But I don't think there's justification right now to reschedule the whole plant.
Yeah, because that's the other side of the argument. Marijuana users and researchers saying, hey, loosen the restrictions for medical marijuana for the entire country, and that way we can learn more about how it affects people. But you're saying doing that is not the answer.
It's actually not the way to research it. There are other ways that we can go about researching marijuana in a much more responsible way. For example, incentivizing researchers, making sure it's not so onerous when they store the product and things like that. And so that's actually happening now. There are companies in this country and other groups that are researching the possible medicinal uses, usually of the components and maybe a combination of the components. But the raw plant, you know, we don't smoke any medicine. The idea that a pharmacist would, you know, give you 3 joints and tell you to call them in the morning, that's not really, there's no way to dose that. That's not realistic. But what is realistic is the research on the various components of it, and I think that should happen. But unfortunately, people use sort of the rescheduling thing and the whole issue as a front for really full legalization, and that has to do with making money. I mean, there's a small number of people who want to become the next Philip Morris, the next big tobacco, and they're waiting. They want it not only to be medicalized but legalized to make a lot of money off of it, and I think that's very unfortunate because I think it would hurt public health.
But when we're talking about these Schedule I drugs, that's the same classification as like heroin, LSD, bath salts. Right. Do you think marijuana belongs in that category?
Well, what's confusing is that it doesn't mean that marijuana is like heroin or is as harmful as heroin. People look at the scheduling and they think that, oh, it means that all these drugs are equivalent. That's not actually what it means. What it means is that they pass a very simple test for the schedule. And the Schedule I means no approved medical use, which is true. There is no approved medical use for, you know, smoking a joint, and high potential for abuse, which is also true because today's marijuana is not the marijuana of the 60s and 70s. It's 20 to 30 times more potent. It's delivered in candies and concentrates and waxes and ice creams and all kinds of different ways that we've never had, you know, wasn't 20 years ago. So it passes that sort of standard for a Schedule I. No one is saying it means it's as harmful as heroin. Even the head of the DEA recently, when he was asked that, he said, look, I'm not saying marijuana is as harmful as heroin. So again, it's sort of understanding what these schedules mean, I think, which is sometimes tricky because it's a kind of a legalistic category.
Mm-hmm. Well, Kevin Sabet, we thank you so much for joining us and providing some insight into this. And have a great day and a good 4th of July weekend.
Thanks, Layla.
Thank you.
You too.
Learned a lot there. I mean, he's very passionate about his stance on this. And so you've heard some of the nicknames that have been associated with him in this whole fight to legalize marijuana.
Certainly some interesting points that he made.
I get what he's saying, and I hear him, and I appreciate him being calm and level-headed and saying his points.
Well,
and that's all you're going to say about that?
I disagree.
Yeah, I fully disagree.
And
I'll
so-
just leave it at
I
that.
fully disagree.
All right. Well.